It has become something of a theme here on MidPoint today, and that is leadership, specifically the leadership of the President of the United States, those around him, our politicians, those who are supposed to lead America out of tough times and certainly keep us safe. You heard a couple of comments earlier on the leadership of the President that were interesting indeed. Whatever you think about leadership, leaders have to have an idea. They need a strategy. They must be ready to lead, and they've got to know where they're going. Again, it's something some American people think, I wonder if our elected officials actually do have an idea where they're taking us. Now let's talk some strategy, if you will. Let's welcome into the studios here at MidPoint. We have talked to him before via Skype. Now it's a chance to have him in studio. Republican strategist Kurt Bardella joins us today. Kurt, thanks for being here.
Great to be here in person.
It's about time, too. It's all right. Come down, get a tan, enjoy yourself. It's all fine.
Worst places to visit, that's for sure.
That is very true. Leadership, indeed. We just had a rather interesting debate about the leadership of the president, and a lot of it was focused on what he is doing right now with regard to ISIS, specifically the terrorist threat that is out there. One of our guests then said the things that we really need to worry about are infrastructure and the climate, which was sort of interesting, seeing as we're talking about terrorism at this point. What exactly, when you talk to the people who are aware of politics and aware of the president and aware of the presidency, what do they say about the leadership of our current man?
Well, I think what they say is there's an alarming lack of leadership right now coming from President Obama. And none of the things that have happened over the last week have been helped by the fact that every time the president is out there talking to the American people, the very next visual they have of him is him on a golf course playing 196 rounds of golf in his presidency. So it's not confidence inspiring when someone's out there saying we need to hold ISIS accountable, we need to get answers. And then he's taking a swing from the 17th tee. That just doesn't really look like leadership to anybody. On the flip side of it, yeah, no one's going to dispute that infrastructure is important and the fate of our planet is important, of course. But when we're looking at a real terrorist threat, when you're looking at people who are being executed, American journalists being beheaded, that takes on a whole different sense of urgency, and people want to feel like their commander-in-chief is really engaged and not out there playing golf.
But does it really make a difference? Because if you go back to the 60s and the 70s, even earlier than that, people wanted the president to be something special. They needed that to be the leader on the hill, if you will, to take us into the next day. In this day and age, the internet, 24/7 cable, constant news that is being thrown at people, social media, does it really make a difference if you have a guy or a gal who's a leader?
I think it makes a huge difference only because, unlike in the 60s and 70s where every moment today is chronicled, every single thing that you do, every activity that you engage in, there's a photograph of, there's a tweet about, there's a day-to-day, minute-to-minute diary of what any president and leader is doing. It was a lot easier to hide, frankly, back in the 60s and 70s than it is today. And because of that newfound scrutiny, how you conduct yourself and what you spend your time doing is going to be scrutinized to the nth degree, and you have to be aware of that and see how is that going to play off in perception, both amongst American people as well as, in this case, the entire international community. Remember, this is a terrorist group that the president once dubbed as just being kind of the JV junior varsity side of things. And now all of a sudden you have the Secretary of Defense, Chuck Hagel, saying this is the most important threat that we face right now. That's a huge gulf and divide between what the president was saying about ISIS 6-7 months ago and where we are today.
Doesn't it show a lack of leadership? And again, I'm going to assume here, but which is always dangerous indeed. A lack of leadership when we talk about strategy. The strategy right now should be those optics. It's hysterical when you consider the fact that social media runs many things right now. So if you're going to constantly be in front of people, social media, optics, where you are and what you do should be part of the strategy. How could any president with people supposedly behind him who know what's going on, who are smart enough, got him elected twice, and they still can't get the strategy right to deal with the American people?
Well, you have to believe that if this were 2010 and there was an election 2 years from now, they would be choreographing this thing entirely differently. It helps when you don't have anything to run for anymore that you can pretty much have the license to do whatever you want.
But you have Democrats. You have fellow Democrats. Shouldn't you be strategizing for them?
Well, I think that this White House and Democrats would say this, and I've heard this from Democrats on Capitol Hill. They feel like this president's completely abandoned them, and that this president's going to do whatever he's going to do, whether it be for the good or not of the entire Democratic Party. It doesn't seem like he's an active participant in helping any Democrats right now. And you look at all the Senate Democrats that are in trouble right now, who are vulnerable, and the fate of the Senate right now now rests in the balance heading in towards November. And nothing that this president has done, whether it be the border crisis, whether it be what's going on with ISIS, none of that has helped them politically. He's been a huge detriment to them, actually.
How could anybody in a position of the President of the United States not care, though? We're talking about just not caring. That doesn't seem right in any stretch of the imagination.
I think that this president and the people who work for him will tell you that they probably don't care anymore about those things. They care much more
We got the money we can cash out?
They're going to do whatever they want to do. There's no election left, nothing to run for after this, so they're going to do exactly what they want to do, how they want to do it, and for anyone else who's impacted by that, politically or not, they're indifferent about it.
I got about 2 minutes left. Two things in from a strategy standpoint. And
Sure.
let's look at the president now and the strategy, our leadership here. Strategy towards ISIS. Where does he go from here, and where do the leaders of America go from here?
Well, you have to believe that from just a pure intelligence, national security, defense standpoint, that the president's getting an enormous amount of feedback from his leaders and his chiefs and the Joint Chiefs telling him exactly what needs to be done, militarily speaking. And you know, it's been reported that they're looking at strikes at Syria now, that this is a huge problem that has festered into a crisis of which American interests are potentially even here domestically now, potentially at threat. There's going to have to be proactive action taken. I think that this president at some point will do that, and that's what he's getting right now from his commanders.
What about the strategy here that the president and the Department of Justice and Eric Holder have employed in dealing with Ferguson, Missouri?
Well, you've seen in the immediate unrest that we saw with the riots and looting that something had to be done on some level to create credibility with that community, that someone was going to step in and get an impartial observation of what actually happened. I think that's why they ordered the third autopsy. I don't think anyone necessarily thinks something new will come of that or anything new discovery will be found of it. The autopsies that we've seen, the reports of them, the 6 gunshots, 1 to the head, the real answers are going to come from the forensic evidence that is yet to be released publicly. That's what will tell us what happened. An autopsy can't tell you the circumstances that led to someone being shot or not shot or the things that happened before the actual firing of any weapon. Autopsy will just tell you this person was shot X amount of times in these locations, potentially could have died from this gunshot wound, but that's it. Those things we pretty much know right now. We don't have any of the information about the forensic evidence.
Strategically, then, 20 seconds here, your answer. Did the president maybe then do the right thing in at least trying to keep the lid on all of this and maybe placate some people and shut it down before it got even worse?
Yeah, I think that sending Holder directly there was a very smart thing to do. I think having third autopsy to show that we're taking an active role in this and we want answers and we're going to get it from a source that you trust, that's something that had to be done. And we've seen the unrest has subsided over the last couple of days.
It doesn't make everybody happy, but sometimes strategy doesn't do that, does it?
No, it doesn't. The best strategy isn't about winning popularity contests.
It's about survival.
That's
really
right.
what it is. Kurt, pleasure. Thanks
you
so much
very
for coming
much.
in. We'll talk to you again very soon.
Look forward to it.
Coming up next hour on MidPoint, the necessity of CIA interrogation techniques, whether we like them or not. Syndicated radio talker Chris Salcido touches on ISIS, the sounds of Sunday, but coming up next, great power, great responsibility, telling it like it is.